Hi everyone, this is Dee from Passion for Paper Beads on Etsy.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to work with the template from the A-1 tutorial and how to change it into different bead shapes. The tutorial that I'm talking about is this one right here that you've already purchased, and if you haven't, there'll be a link at the end of the video for you to go over to my Etsy shop and then you can pick it up there. The tutorial, when it's printed out, has a template that you can transfer onto the back of your bead sheets, and once you print it out, the template looks like this. So it's basically marked off as A and B strips. I'm going to be showing you how to do quite a few different combinations of beads, and they will look like these, different shapes. I'll show these to you at the end. The first thing I want to show you is the instructions are going to give you a combination of strips that will say 1B and 2 A's, 2 B's, 1 A, and so forth. Some of them will say cut A and B as one strip or cut A, B, A as one strip. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. First of all, if you were to cut on this outer A line and this outer B line, you would actually end up with a rectangle strip. And that's not what we want. What we want is we want it to be wider at the top and then narrower at the bottom. So this very first A strip, if you're trying to cut one of the patterns that say ABA, then you're going to have to remove this strip. So we're going to cut this off, and we'll just set it aside because we'll be able to use it later to build one of the other beads. These type of beads are called layering. We are actually layering different strips of paper, and we're just going to be continuing to join them together. So this right here is the AB strip. So when it says to cut an A plus B as one strip, this is what it's talking about. You've got your A on the left and your B on the right. Again, it's going to be wider at the very top and narrower at the bottom. The other strip that it'll be asking you to cut will be an ABA pattern. Again, I'm going to cut this B off and set it aside because we'll use it for a bead later. And we're going to do ABA. So you're cutting on the outside line of the A. And that's going to give you a strip that is wider at the top, narrower at the bottom. That looks like this. For the sake of saving some time, I'm going to review a couple things with you. One of the things I want to review with you is the remounting that was covered in the previous videos. Remounting is basically, this is 28-pound paper and this is colored cardstock. And what I want to do is I want to remount the 28 on top of the cardstock. And the purpose of doing that, you're basically just tacking the two pages together with a glue stick. Hook it down, and what that does is it just keeps your pages together while you're cutting out, making cutting easier, and just join them as one unit. This is my first time working on this tray, and it's a little strange to me. So here we go. Okay, so now it's still going to be open in the center just like I showed you before, and just tack down on the ends, and the cutting lines are already printed on the back of the cardstock. So that's remounting. I keep a little index card like this, and I write down my combinations, and I literally have like a little recipe box that I keep them in. It just helps me to remember what did I do, what order did I do them in, and you might find this is very helpful to keep little cards so that you know what you've done, what you liked. You can make additional notes. What I usually put what weight of paper I bought. If it was a specific color of cardstock, I bought it at Joann's, Hobby Lobby, or Michael's, I usually put that on there, and I cut out a little piece of the leftover cardstock and glue it on so that I know what color it was. And that way, if I want to go back and remake it 3 months from now, I can pretty much make it exactly like I did the first time. So you might find something like that to be very helpful. I've gone ahead and cut out some strips of paper following all the different patterns I'm going to show you. The first one I'm going to show you is going to be working with a solid color and then changing over to a print. So I'm going to start with this. And this strip right here is the AB strip. This is a B strip, and this is an A strip. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and use my red roller from C-Bar 5 Creations on Etsy, the ones I'm always talking about. I'm going to pre-curl the thicker paper, but not the other two. Today I'm not using glue stick. I find with these layered beads that the liquid glue just has a little bit more holding power and allows you to pull a little more. I've actually got Mod Podge in this bottle. It's not Elmer's glue. I usually just refill it because I use it for base coating, so I just fill it up with one glue. Put it in your roller, rolling it down, keeping it on center. I like to work with the bead a little bit distance from the base here, because if you get too close to the wood, I find it's really a lot easier to get off center. So if you just slide it out a little bit to the tip, then you're good. I've already pre-prepped these papers, and then the next step I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to roll that first piece down. I use a glue nozzle. I don't use any paintbrushes. Use the nozzle to smear it around. I don't like using brushes. It's one more thing to buy and one more thing to clean up, so I prefer to just use the tip of the bottle, and you can just wash it off or peel it off when it's dry. This is strip B. It's going to go in right behind the first strip that you did. You want to try and line it up so that the edges are matching. Now some of the other beads we're going to be making, you won't be lining it up till the edges are matching. You'll be centering it with the last page, and I'll show you the last strip that you used. So here you go. We're just going to keep that on center. I'm going to turn it this way because it's hard for me to roll on center with my hand at a strange angle. We're rolling it down. This is the first time working with this new camcorder, so hopefully we have everything positioned nicely so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to flip it over, put a little more glue, smear it around with the tip, and now we're going to add in the last strip. So you're going to push it down so that you have probably about 1/16 to 1/4 of an inch sticking up, and then you just slide it right in behind. You can bring your pointer finger in here to hold it a little bit, and then you just keep winding down. Just try your best to keep it on center. This does take a little practice. These are more advanced beads. However, it's really not that difficult. It just basically takes a little practice. It's mostly just lining up the strips. Now you want to put more glue. I find these metallic papers sometimes are a little bit harder to get glued down. They almost seem to resist the moisture from the glue instead of absorbing it. So you might have to hold it in place a little bit longer. And again, when you go to remove your bead from your roller, let me squish this down. Before you were rolling away from you, so this time you're going to be rolling the bead roller toward you, pinching the bead so you're not distorting it, and then you just pretty much twist it out. If you're keeping your finger pushing right here at the end, the bead should not distort. I know I've been getting a lot of questions about that lately. How do you get the bead off the bead roller without distorting the bead? So this is when you're going to be mixing a solid colored cardstock with a printed paper. And this is one of the new designs that I just made. That is black on white, and you can just print it onto any solid color that you'd like. And I did it with the copper and the black, and I really liked how it looked. So I wanted to show that to you. Okay, the 3 bead rollers that I'm going to be working with to take you through all these shapes today are going to be the red, the orange, and the green bead rollers. These are the 3 that I'll be using. I've already gone through and pre-cut out all the papers because if I didn't, this video would be like an hour long. The first thing I want to show you, and I've already done this on the rest of my strips, but I want to show you is this. If you go up to the top and you are just nipping off that corner so that it's not pointed on both sides, okay? and then you separate the top paper from the bottom paper just like before, and you remove some of the bottom paper. Okay, you're going to do this with each of the strips. This one is a B strip and 2 A strips, so when you take the corners off of the A's, you can do them as one unit. And then you just cut the top one at an angle and remove a little bit of the bottom. Open it up, take a little bit more off of the underneath paper, that's your top, and a little bit off the last one. So this one, the combination, and the combinations will all be posted at the end of the video, so you can pause it and write them down, or you can just wait till the end and then go and write them all down. I really suggest that you go through and make one of each bead and possibly take a picture of it and write down. I might try and do that, is make like a sheet that shows you each bead. Okay, we're working with the red roller. If you want to, you can pre-curl these. The cardstock I'm working with today is a little bit thinner, so it doesn't seem as stiff. You're going to put the B in because this is the first one we're doing. 1 strip of B and 2 strips of A. You really want to make sure that you keep that base paper, the black solid paper, underneath the printed paper as much as possible. That way it gives you a little accent on the edge of the bead, but you don't want it to turn the entire end of the bead black. Sometimes, maybe when you're cutting, you didn't have the paper pinched together quite enough, and it might have actually split out a little bit and caused the underneath paper to be just a tiny bit wider than the print. That does happen. If you're troubleshooting, trying to figure out if you've got too much showing. Some people ask me sometimes, how do you get the paper to show? So I guess they're doing such a great job cutting that their paper's not showing at all when they roll it. They're only seeing the printed. Alright, so I've rolled it down. We've got that little glued edge sticking up. Then your 2 strips of A on top of each other with the one that's cut off at an angle on top and the one that's straight cut underneath. Again, if you want, you can curl these. I'm just going to take and I am going to glue these right in behind. I think I went down a little too far. You're going to glue them in right behind, and then you're going to hold it really tightly because they're going to tend to want to jump out till that glue sets in. Make sure that your edges are all lined up with each other, and then you're going to start rolling it. Again, you want to try and keep these papers on center as much as you can. These beads are a little bit different shape, but with a little bit of practice you're going to be surprised and you're going to be like, wow, these beads are really great. They're larger, they're shapes that you've never seen before for sale. They're not the typical shapes that you see coming out of Africa or anywhere else that paper beads are being made out of the country. Okay, now this paper, if you look at it, it looks like it could be cut a little bit shorter. I don't want it sticking up too much, so I'm going to take a little bit more off. Put your glue underneath each layer, and then you're just going to make sure that that's in the center. And there's the first bead. This is 1B with 2 A's, and again, just like I told you in the past, you want to set it on a hard surface, push it down to line up your ends. If they're not quite aligned, you can push them a little bit more. Also, sometimes when you cut it, it's really crazy, but if your paper is just a little bit off, it might stick out a little bit more on one end than the other, no matter how much you align it. Or you're making earrings and one bead is just a tiny bit pointier than the other. You actually can take a regular nail file to the top of this, and I'll be showing you this in another video when we do the cones, but you can just take a nail file and you can literally file the top of the bead. It won't hurt it at all, and you can get those ends to look more identical. So there's the first one. Okay, now we're going to try and power through these last ones. The next one we're going to do is going to be 2 strips of B and 1 strip of A. And like I said, I've already prepped these. I'm moving up to the orange roller now because I find it's really hard to get 4 different layers of paper to fit in that red roller. They just don't want to slide in. So we're going to do 2 strips of B. This is going to make a bigger base. I always consider the first strip that you roll to be the base of the bead, and then the next ones that you roll are the ones that are going to be changing the entire shape of the bead. Now here we've got some different layers. It's not a problem, just put some glue. There's my towel. I've been using the palm of my hand. I knew I had a towel out here. There we go. You're going to add in the A strip right behind it. Push it down, hold it on. And then you're just going to keep bringing it around, making sure again that that paper stays underneath. You're on center. This bead is actually very similar to the original beads that I showed you in the first video working with the template A-1. This is very similar to the size of the earring bead, only I think the diameter is slightly smaller. And I think part of that is because right now I'm working with 28-pound paper mounted onto a cardstock. So this is your next shape. And again, push the ends down. And that's what you have. A really nice, it's kind of flat on the ends, but more of a round bead. Okay, the next one we're going to do is going to be the AB with 1 strip of B and 1 strip of A. So this is your AB. Everything's already been pre-cut on the corners and prepped and ready to go. So you're going to put that in and see if it's going to grab. We might have to go back down to the red roller. Let's see if I can. There we go. Once you pinch it and get it started, you're good. Okay, this one, same thing. You really want to make sure that you roll this on center because it's really hard when you start adding in those layers to go back and adjust the bottom bead. And these next sheets, some of them will line up exactly the same width at the end. Sometimes this strip that you're rolling is going to be wider and the next one coming in is narrower, and it's just really a lot easier to keep your whole bead balanced if this core, this center part, is rolled on center. Some more glue. Bring it down. Leave your edge. Now we're going to add in the B strip. And again, this time, because the B strip is narrower than the last paper we used, what you really want to look at is the distance between the top edge of B and that last roll from the last one in the bottom, and make sure that they are even. By the way, the paper that I'm using to roll these beads, some of you might recognize it, is Tiger Eyes. It seems like we've been on a little bit of an Africa-inspired binge here the last few days, but I'm really liking how these beads are looking. They're going to go in really nicely with some of the other Africa-type themed papers that we've been working with. Alright, so now B's added in there, and again, you're leaving your little edge up, and you're going to take A, and you're going to add it in. Again, making sure that A is centered on top of B, that the distance between the top edge of the raw paper and the last paper are centered. You might want to try making these the first time with just 2 colors of cardstock so you can really see your centering and rolling, just to get a good feel for how to make these. I think the first set you make, if you just use 2 contrasting colors of cardstock, it would be a lot easier for you to see, and then when you start working with the bead sheets that have a busier pattern, it will be much easier for you to see where you're going and what it is you're trying to do. Okay, so this one is the A and B cut as one strip with one B and one A added in. And so now, hey, glue all over me. So now you can see that this one has a rounder middle and a more pointed end. The next one we're going to do is going to be much bigger. This is an ABA cut, which means you've got an A, a B, and an A. This time, since it's wider, I'm going to curl the top strip. So then, move this down so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and slide it in. Same thing. Roll it. If you're getting too close to the wood part here, just get a couple turns going and then slide it up a little bit. This is probably the hardest one to do, or if you're not comfortable doing it on the smaller one, you can switch over to the green roller, which is a lot easier. We're going to go ahead and use the green one so you can really see what's going on here. You can go ahead and use the green roller. And if you're having trouble with your holes being too big on your beads when you use the green roller and getting them stabilized, say like in a pair of earrings or something that you're using a head pin, a really simple thing to do with those is to put a piece of Scotch tape on the head pin to kind of take up that extra space inside of your paper bead, and it helps stabilize the bead on the head pin. So if there's one particular side you want facing forward all the time, you can actually put the tape on the head pin and make sure that it's facing forward. Okay, now you can see that this is much wider than this. So the object here is to get this paper that you're adding in centered so that the distance from here to here is the same as from the bottom edge to the bottom edge of your base bead. Okay, so you're just going to roll that, staying on center. And these are fairly good sized beads, but if you use the 28-pound paper and mount it on cardstock, that will make about a medium diameter for these type of beads. If you used 67-pound paper to print your design on and then mount it on cardstock, that would make your biggest diameter bead. And if you wanted, you could just print the design directly onto 67-pound paper and use that by itself. And I'll show you some beads that were made that way when we're all done. So now I'm just adding in A. And this is going to make a bead that's almost like a graduated in tube bead that almost looks like it has a round bead in the middle. I really like this shape. It's just kind of fun, something different. And with these Africa prints, well, all of them look pretty, it doesn't matter, but we seem to just be really into these Africa ones lately. Okay, so there's that shape. Again, we're going to just pull it off. If you need to push your ends, push them. But try when you're doing the pushing of the ends, don't push on that center part of the bead because you will get it off center again. So there's that one. Pretty cool. Okay, the next one we're going to do, I'm going to keep going with the, where'd you go? The green roller, because it's just faster. This one that we're doing now is an ABA cut, and it just has one strip of B. So it's going to be very similar to this, but it's going to have a little bit smaller center diameter. So we're going to roll this down. My ends look a little off. I think I got a little off center, so when that happens, you just back it up to where it looked okay, and then roll it down again. Like I said, this base bead, this bottom bead is really important to the overall look of the finished bead, as if it's not on center, it's going to make the bead look a little bit off when you're done. So you want to try your best to get that on center. And then all you're going to be doing is rolling this down, leaving a little bit of space again, adding your B strip. It took me a while to get this part, centering the smaller strip on top of the big one, but really it just takes a little practice. It's not that difficult. And this kind of looks like the graduated, I like the graduated end tube beads more so than the two beads that are just straight flush at the bottom. I don't know, it just looks a little bit more polished when the ends are slightly graduated on the tube beads. Plus everybody else is making them with flat ends and nobody wants to be like everybody else. So we'll say this is a new improved graduated end kind of a tube bead. So there you have that one, which basically does look like a tube bead, and then it's got this little bit of design, a little bit wider towards the center. I think I've lost count of how many different beads we've made with this, but I think it's at least 7. This time we're going to be using the ABA cut, and we're going to be using, go down to the last one, 2 strips of B. You know, and people say all the time, you know, if everybody took the same bead sheet, the same weight of paper, the same template, and made it, still your beads will look slightly different because they're made by hand, and everyone rolls with a different tension. I personally roll with quite a bit of tension, but I'm not really rotating my wrist, I'm just twirling the stick, but I'm doing it and I'm really controlling the paper just by using tension. I just think it makes a more solid bead. It makes a more polished looking bead. Alright, this time we're going to be adding in there's 2 strips of B, one right on top of each other. So when it says 2A or 2B, you are just putting them one right on top of the other. Looking to make sure that it's in the middle. These just are not quite as adjustable when you get to the end, so if you get it off on the right start with everything centered, then you don't have to worry about trying to adjust it at the end and possibly getting it off and making it worse. So just keep all your papers lined up, and then because now with having the paper mounted on top of each other and being 2 strips on top of each other, there's actually 4 layers. So you make sure you get a little bit of glue in between each one. Make sure that these ends are staying lined up with your base paper and your top ones. And then just wind it down. And that is the last of the ABA patterned beads. And then we have 2 more to go, which are an AB cut as one. And that's the next one. So now I'm going to go back to the orange roller. And this one is A and B. And we're going to be adding in 2, it's not gripping, let's go down to the red. We're going to be adding in 2 of the A strips. Now I can't get it to go in at all. Let's try back with the orange. See, sometimes I do go back and forth. Everybody always says, when are you going to use the other rollers? I get that question a lot. It seems like you always use the orange, and then if you talk to Pamela, she favors the red. Although with some of these beads and all these layers of papers, I'm not quite sure how she gets them in the red roller, because I can't. I can only seem to get, you know, 2 sometimes I can't even get that. If the papers are both thick, I can't get them in the red roller. So I just use the orange roller because it seems like I can do both. Okay, so you are rolling almost there. Again, too, if you look at this shape of bead, that's a pretty cool shape, and that's just using A and B together. That's another possibility. If you like that shape bead, it's just another nice one to add into the mix. Okay, now we're going to just slide the two. I've got two of the A's stacked on top of each other. We're going to slide that in and center it. Got something going on here. Oh, I forgot to cut out my bottom paper. See, even me who's done this so many times, I forgot to release it. And I was like, why does that feel so weird when I'm rolling it? And I just simply forgot to cut out my base paper before I start. So you can see the layers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you need to put some glue on all of the layers. Okay? And then make sure they're all laying down. Sometimes I just go like this. And then like this. They're lined up. And then roll it into place. This one kind of reminds me of a bead I saw. I think someone named it the Saturn bead. So there you have that one, which is kind of looks like the olive bead with the rounder bead in the center. And the last one is the AB cut, and then we're going to just add in 1 strip of bead. So you get, it's really not that difficult to roll 1 strip of paper and then to add some glue and add in a secondary strip or a third